The next item on your agenda, and I would invite Thera Black with SCJ Alliance to come up, but this is resolution number 16-162. This is ratifying a consultant supplement for over $40,000 for an active public works project. As you're aware, well, first of all, this resolution will ratify a consultant supplement over $40,000. And pursuant to Resolution 11437, directors of each of the county departments under the authority of the Board of County Commissioners possess authority to execute and bind Lewis County to consulting services, contracts, projects, agreements, grant applications, contract amendments, and change orders involving the actual expenditure or receipt of less than $150,000 per year, provided that by resolution, acceptance of such funding has been authorized and approved by the board, which has been done, and further that the board will ratify by resolution after the fact such contracts, projects, agreements, and grant applications, contract amendments, and change orders in excess of $40,000 but less than $150,000. Public Works executed an individual consultant supplement in excess of $40,000 with SCJ Alliance for the North Lewis County Industrial Access Project. Therefore, post-contract ratification is required for the following project expenditures, and it's for $128,232 is what this amendment is for. Prior to you signing this ratification, I felt that now would be a very good time to have SCJ Alliance come up and talk to the board and the public about where we started, where we've been, and where we're going for this project, to let you guys know exactly where we are with it and then what the next steps are. And with that, I'll hand it off to Thera Black with your permission. Thank you.
Good morning. It's good to be here. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you. And we're going to, I've not done this before, so I guess I'll just sort of let you know when it's when I could use a click there, please. So my name is Thera Black. I'm a transportation planning manager with SCJ Alliance. This is a small engineering and planning design firm up in Lacey, Washington. And we're very fortunate to get to work with you on this project, the North Lewis County Industrial Access Project. The project need, I'm going to give you just a little bit of background about how we got here and what we're accomplishing. And as you know, there are some economic difficulties in Lewis County in terms of job loss over the years, chronic high unemployment, and lower wages compared to the rest of the state. At the same time, you do have an industrial land base that maybe is not fully tapped. You have, within that land base, you have a lot of good jobs, but there's also some underutilized lands. And as over the years, as people have looked at that, it appears that there is partly an issue to do with lack of access to these lands. It's hard to attract industrial investors if you don't have good ways of getting in and out of these lands, or for the jobs that are already there, if growing traffic conflicts make it difficult for trucks to get in and out. So the sort of the project need behind all of this is to grow your industrial job base as well as to protect the jobs that are already here, because these are the family wage jobs that are going to keep your next generations here, give them jobs to come home to when they get out of college. Please. So the North Lewis County Industrial Access goal, as it is then, is to strengthen the economy, to protect the jobs that are here. They've actually established, the steering committee that I'll talk about in a second has actually established a goal of trying to create 1,000 new jobs, industrially oriented jobs here by 2030. These are good family wage jobs. The other real interesting emphasis coming out of this work so far is that it's the economic region. This economic region doesn't really respect county lines. And what we've heard from the policymakers and the decision makers and the business owners who've been involved is that this is really about North Lewis and South Thurston counties, which is just really a remarkably visionary thing, because a lot of the people who live in South Thurston County have relied on these jobs as well over the years, and their economies are sort of tied very closely with that of Lewis County. Please. So what's likely to come out of this are a lot of strategies. Some of these are going to be probably local transportation projects. You're going to have some developer-driven projects. But because this is an economic project really at its core, you're also likely to see some things that aren't transportation related, maybe some things like land use or regulatory reform that would remove some barriers that are perhaps inhibiting some investment. We also know that in the current legislative budget, there is $50 million slated to begin, that funding is slated to begin being made available for Lewis County starting in 2025. That could be focused on perhaps a new state interchange or some other major transportation investment. However, that's a good 10 years out before that funding becomes available. And so our goal as we go through this is to identify some short-term fixes as well, please. So this is sort of a quick rundown of the steps that you go through in a process like this, please. We're fairly early in this process. We have sort of laid this groundwork, have established our stakeholder groups, kicked off public process, and have laid the groundwork sort of for the understanding of the issues and the opportunities, please. What I would like to do, though, is we have made several presentations to community groups here, the stakeholder groups, also to outside groups about the details of the project itself. What I'd like to do today, given the resolution that's in front of you, is to talk really about the contract that you have with SCJ Alliance, and so put it into that framework for you, as opposed to just doing the standard, let me tell you about the North Lewis County Industrial Access Project. There are basically 4 phases of work. We have completed the first phase, and that first phase, I say we've completed it, but it really extends throughout the life of this project. Our direction from the very get-go was that this project must be inclusive of the public. This is not something that we are to go to the public at the end of the process and tell them, hey, we've got this great idea, what do you think about it? And so before we ever even convened a stakeholder meeting, we had convened an open house last fall with the public to invite them to come in and tell us kind of what's on their mind. What do they know about issues that are maybe inhibiting economic development in this area? What are their ideas? What is really on their mind at the very get-go? And that actually helped to shape some of our work and messaging when we convened the stakeholder groups later. So this public process is the big continuous theme throughout this whole project. We have the second phase that we're in right now is sort of this data analysis, data collection, gathering mode. That ties in very closely with traffic analysis. And then the fourth phase is an action plan. So I'm going to walk through each of these 4. I can give you a bit more detail about the process that we're just sort of wrapping up and getting started in. But I trust that you'll have some good questions for us at the end, please. So as I said, this very first phase that we have concluded is this sort of community engagement, stakeholder process phase. We have conducted 2 general public meetings. We have established a website. Our challenge in all of this is to make sure that the information that we present is accessible to a wide audience. If our process is so technical in its terminology and its approach that it excludes the public from participating, then we have failed in our mission. My job is to help translate very complex technical concepts, this phase that we're in right now, into information that is understandable so that people can provide meaningful input. It's really important to us that your community can weigh in and provide us with informed input. We're not asking for people to just blindly rubber stamp things. So we've really structured our materials and our thinking around that. To complement the general public engagement, though, we do know that there are some keen stakeholder interest involved with this, and so we have 2 standing committees. One is a steering committee that provides us with sort of oversight and guidance and sort of sets the framework within which we do a lot of our work. And then we have a technical advisory committee that does get into the weeds on the technical details, and that's where the jargon and the acronyms and all flow freely, because that is that particular group's expertise. Stakeholders come from local government, so we have Commissioner Fund representing the Board of County Commissioners on the steering committee. We have Commissioner Blake from Thurston County also on that steering committee. We have Chairman Cecina from the Chehalis Tribe on that committee. We have mayors on the committee. We have public works directors. We have business representatives on this committee, because we know that what we are talking about is economic development. We have chambers of commerce and the Economic Development Council. So we have a very wide range of perspectives and interest on these committees. I think, again, what is really notable about this is that we have representatives from both Lewis County and Thurston County at the very strong behest of the steering committee, that we keep this sort of blind to the county border, because the economic relationship between South Thurston and North Lewis is so strong. So this steering committee brings a lot of perspectives in, land use perspectives, economic development, and transportation. I would be remiss to not also acknowledge that we have DOT at the table, as well as Federal Highway Administration, because for a long time there's been a perception that this is going to result in a highway interchange. It may, but we have to go through this process of discovery to get there. However, as soon as we start talking about the state system, we must have DOT and federal highways at the table, or else whatever strategy we come up with at the end, no matter how well justified, is not going to get their approval. Please. So we've had, like I said, a series of meetings, and in fact, through the public process, that has really helped us flesh out what the key issues are underlying these things, the conflicts, the people who drive these streets and sit in the backups caused by trains and all of that every day. They're the best ones to tell us what the problems are on the ground. They're also the best ones to give us a lot of ideas about how we could address those problems. Please. We have also, through this first phase of work that's been completed, we've established a partnership agreement. I could go into detail on that later if you're interested, but this is basically a commitment among the steering committee members to each other about how they're going to work together. And I'll just say, as the staff person who got to work with them in developing this, we approached it originally as this was how we were going to work together on the project, but instead it turned out to be how they are going to work together to ensure the success of the outcomes of this process. And so it was a very powerful, very visionary sort of statement of commitment to the people of Lewis County, the businesses, and the economy. They've basically said, we are the ones who are going to carry this forward and ensure its success. And this is sort of a word cloud of some of the key words that come out of that agreement, please. This one passage, which I'm sure will show up in your minutes as well, is, I thought, particularly telling the principles sort of by which, or the objectives by which they are going to pursue this. And again, you can see a very strong commitment to community engagement, transparency, forward-looking, collaborative partnerships to try to turn the tide against what is admittedly a lot of forces that are a lot bigger than Lewis County at play here, and them sort of saying, we are the ones who are going to find the way to move this one forward. Please. So that's sort of a recap of, a very high-level recap of the work that's been accomplished to date from Phase 1, and we're now into Phase 2. And Phase 2 is a lot of data collection and analysis. This is making sure that we understand the conditions on the ground. In my experience over the years, sometimes the data and the evidence doesn't always line up with what our perception is about things, so it's really important as we go forward that we try to keep this as objective as possible. And so right now we're in that data collection mode, please, looking at a really wide variety of factors. As you start looking at transportation and access issues to industrial lands here, you have a lot of complexities associated with the number of trains that come through town every day, the potential for tourist and shopper-related traffic to conflict with truck traffic trying to get in and out of the various industrial sites west of I-5. You have certainly the untapped opportunity right now out at the old TransAlta site. But again, how does freight get in and out of there without negatively impacting neighborhoods? So we're looking at things like railroad crossings and how long the gates are down. We're looking at peak travel volumes. We're looking at when the largest number of trucks are on the road. So this is all part of our trying to do our due diligence and really understand real world conditions on the ground to help validate or refine what our perceptions are of the problems and the opportunities in front of us. Because if we're not starting from a solid place of knowledge, then the strategies that are likely to come out of this are not going to be as robust as they should be. Please. That work and the model development and all that goes into that then leads into the development of an action plan. So the action plan is really the product that we're looking for at the end of this process that we're in. The action plan, like I said earlier, is likely to have a lot of different components to it. When studies like this are done in other communities, when you don't have that sort of economic nexus as the basis of it, when it's just we're trying to solve a traffic congestion issue at a particular location or a particular highway interchange, that action plan that would come out of that is likely to be mostly just transportation projects, or maybe exclusively. This one we think is going to have some other ideas in it as well. We're already hearing ideas that are land use based or regulatory based that merit some closer evaluation. In a nutshell, what happens, what we've been doing right now, and we're going to wrap this process up today with Lewis County and Centralia Community College staff, what we're doing right now is we're casting a wide net to collect as many ideas and as many issues as we can possibly collect from the people who live and experience this every day. When we start going through that evaluation process, right now we're saying there are no bad ideas. There are no bad ideas on the table. We're talking tunnels through hills. There are no bad ideas. When we start this evaluation process in phase 4, we start winnowing those down. We start off, and what these inverted pyramids show is, on the one hand, where you have it where it's very wide at the top, that is the universe of ideas that has come up from this process. And over the course of some screening processes, we winnow them down. We do some fatal flaw analysis. We start doing more detailed analysis until we end up with a very refined, finite set of practical, defensible strategies to stimulate industrial development in Lewis County. The other pyramid, the one where it's narrow on top, parallels that, because at the same time that we're winnowing down this large universe of options, we start off with a very high-level analysis, not very detailed analysis, some basic fatal flaw analysis. The deeper down we go, the more detailed that analysis gets. These are the models that we're building now, the traffic analysis that we're doing now. So by the time we get down to selecting what you might think of as the preferred alternative, the preferred solution set to go into the action plan, those few things that we select at the end will be selected through a very comprehensive, detailed operational and evaluation analysis. So that's the value of that inverse pyramid. Wide range of solutions, high level analysis. The more refined that range of solution gets, the much more detailed and comprehensive the analysis gets. The action plan, please, will identify measures to take us from today. What we heard from the steering committee is, so we'll wrap this up later this year, early next year, but then what? Do we just sit on our thumbs and wait until 2025 for that $50 million to start becoming available? And they said, no, there are things they believe that can be done between now and then. And so our goal is to identify that range of measures, achievable, but you're going to have to stretch to do it, I'm sure, but achievable things between now and when that money comes available probably some low-cost things, again, maybe some regulatory refinements, things one of the ideas that came out of our last public meeting, and it was a really basic thing, was better signal coordination and timing, something that we can start doing today that will help improve access and circulation throughout the area, please. We expect to wrap all of this up, like I said, either late this year or early in 2017. Some of what's driving this is not only your time and your need to get moving on with this, but we also understand that you have comprehensive plan updates that are due next year. There is a state grant cycle that will kick off in June of 2017. We think that there are going to be some projects in this that are going to be eligible for those grants, and we want to get you wrapped up and everybody, sort of queued up for what their part in this could be to play and help communities find the grants that they need to start ticking off these strategies. And so that is the timeline that we're shooting for because there are a lot of other things riding on this. Again, if we were just worried about the $50 million out there in 2025, it wouldn't have such a sense of urgency. But there are some pressures mounting in some areas, and we do want to take advantage of every opportunity that we can between now and then to start improving the situation here. So please, last one. So if you have, certainly as you know, if you ever have any questions or comments, you, for at least a while still, you have
Yes.
Tim to turn to. You can contact me or the rest of my team up at SCJ to help to respond to them, or if you have ideas or suggestions, it's never too late to get in touch and share your thoughts and ideas. And with that, I think I'd like to turn it over to you, if appropriate, for your questions or discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does the board have any questions?
Just a comment. This is a big deal for us when you look at the North County interchange, what it might hold for our county, and hopefully we won't be listed as, having high unemployment and low wages, et cetera. This really bodes well for our future. So I appreciate all the efforts on this.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. And one of the things that we've said all along is the definition of our problem is that our high school kids are growing up, the leaders of our high school are growing up, and college, and not having opportunities here in our community to stay in our community. And with this effort, we are hoping to ensure that there will be opportunities here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Tim.
You are invited to immerse yourself in the beauty of nature in all four corners of Lewis County, Washington. From our fields to your table, farms in the west share their bounty. Limitless landscapes, forests and mountains beg to be explored in the east. Fish our many rivers and lakes in the south, and discover where history and culture intersect in our twin cities. Explore it all by visiting our Facebook page and plan your next getaway at discoverlewiscounty.com. Culture, history, and adventure all come alive when you discover Lewis County.